15 Golden Age stars who were actually bald but wore wigs. Well, he's the Tube King. We sit down with a man who perfected Sinatra's hairpiece as he dishes the dirt on which Hollywood hunks are covering up false spots. Behind every perfectly coiffed Hollywood leading man of the Golden Age lurked a secret that studios guarded as carefully as scandal. Many of cinema's most iconic stars were actually balding or completely bald, relying on carefully crafted wigs, toupees, and hairpieces to preserve their matinee idol images. The practice wasn't just about vanity, it was survival in an industry obsessed with youth, romance, and perfection. Audiences believed in the fantasy, and the studios made sure the illusion held up on screen, even if it meant elaborate daily rituals to glue, style, and secure false locks before the cameras rolled. Today, we pull back the curtain on 15 beloved Golden Age actors who kept their hair loss hidden behind Hollywood magic. 1. Frank Sinatra. The chairman of the board may have been known for his smooth voice and sharp style, but by his 30s, Sinatra was already losing his hair. He relied on custom-made hairpieces to maintain his signature look. These weren't just off-the-shelf wigs, they were meticulously crafted to blend perfectly under studio lights, allowing Sinatra to keep the image of effortless cool alive. Behind the scenes, his stylists treated his hairpieces like crown jewels, often bringing multiple spares to film sets and concerts. 2. Humphrey Bogart. The hard-boiled star of Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon was not immune to the march of time. Bogart began thinning on top early in his career, and by the time he became a leading man, he was wearing partial hairpieces. His trademark fedoras weren't just a stylistic choice, they helped conceal his hairline and gave him the rugged silhouette audiences loved. On set, careful camera angles and lighting kept the illusion intact. 3. John Wayne. The Duke was the ultimate man's man on screen, but off-screen, he was one of many stars who relied on a hairpiece. Wayne started wearing a toupee in the 1940s and continued for the rest of his career. His hairpiece was so much a part of his public image that he rarely appeared without it, even at home when visitors were present. Wayne's wig was specially designed to withstand the demands of action scenes, horseback riding, and outdoor filming. 4. Fred Astaire. Known for his graceful dancing and impeccable style, Astaire suffered from significant hair loss early in life. By his mid-20s, he was already wearing a hairpiece, which he maintained religiously. His toupees were designed to stay secure during his famously athletic dance numbers, which required careful adhesive application before each performance. Astaire himself joked about his baldness in private, but never on stage or screen. 5. Robert Taylor, MGM's manufactured leading man. Robert Taylor's journey from modest college student to MGM's premier leading man represents one of Hollywood's most successful image manufacturing operations, a transformation that included increasingly sophisticated hairpieces as his natural hairline receded throughout his career. Unlike some stars who began wearing hairpieces only after significant hair loss, Taylor's case was proactive. MGM began supplementing his hair before it had noticeably thinned, determined to protect their investment in creating the perfect romantic lead. By the early 1940s, when Taylor was still in his early 30s, the studio's hairstylists were already using small hairpieces to enhance his widow's peak and ensure the perfect hairline for close-ups. Hairstylist Sidney Gilleroff later revealed that the studio viewed Taylor's hair as a critical component of his marketability. Louis B. Mayer considered Robert's appearance a valuable studio asset, Gilleroff recalled. When Robert began showing early signs of thinning, Mayer personally approved the budget for creating the finest hairpieces available, considering it an essential investment in maintaining a valuable property. What makes Taylor's case interesting is how his hairpieces evolved alongside changing masculine ideals. In his early romantic roles, opposite Greta Garbo and Vivien Leigh, his hairpieces created a perfectly styled appearance in keeping with 1930s notions of the romantic lead. As audience tastes shifted toward more rugged male images during and after World War II, Taylor's hairpieces were redesigned to create a more masculine, slightly less perfect appearance. Taylor's MGM contract included unusual provisions regarding his appearance maintenance. According to studio memos, Taylor was required to consult with the studio before making any changes to his appearance, including haircuts. A dedicated hairstylist was assigned to maintain consistency in his look across productions. Unlike some stars who were sensitive about their hairpieces, Taylor reportedly maintained a pragmatic attitude. Director George Sidney later recalled, "Bob approached his hairpiece the way he approached everything, with professionalism and without ego. He viewed it as part of his job, like knowing his lines or hitting his marks." Horrible. It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring. You mean like Democrats? Horrible. It's worse than horrible because a zombie has no will of his own. You see them sometimes walking around blindly with dead eyes, following orders, not knowing what they do, not caring. 6. Burt Reynolds. While more associated with 1970s, Reynolds carried on the Golden Age tradition of the discreet hairpiece. He began thinning in his late 20s and quickly turned to wigs to maintain his sex symbol status. Reynolds' toupees became so much a part of his identity that even in candid photos, he was almost never seen without one. Later in life, he became more open about it, but during his peak, the subject was strictly off-limits. 7. Sean Connery. The original James Bond exuded confidence, sophistication, and danger, but he was bald by the time he took on the role in Dr. No. Connery wore a carefully tailored toupee in all his Bond films, designed to withstand fight scenes, underwater sequences, and close-up shots. In public, he embraced his baldness in later years, but in the 1960s, studio pressure kept him covered. 8. Anthony Quinn. The rugged, versatile actor of Zorba the Greek fame began losing his hair early and relied on hairpieces for many roles. His wigs were often styled to fit the cultural background of his characters, from Greek fishermen to Mexican revolutionaries. Off-screen, Quinn alternated between wearing his hairpiece and going bareheaded, depending on the occasion. 9. Cary Grant. Grant's suave appearance and perfect grooming made him one of Hollywood's most enduring style icons. Yet by the 1950s, he was using subtle hairpieces to maintain his youthful look. His were among the most natural-looking in Hollywood, blending seamlessly thanks to top-tier craftsmanship and Grant's own meticulous grooming habits. 10. James Stewart. Known for his everyman charm and sincere performances, Stewart began wearing a hairpiece in middle age. His stylists crafted pieces that matched his wholesome all-American image, never too thick or unnatural. Stewart reportedly felt more comfortable in his wigs than without, as they had become part of his on-screen persona. 11. Yul Brynner. In a twist, Brynner, famous for his completely bald look in The King and I, actually wore wigs for some roles earlier in his career. Though he eventually embraced his baldness and made it a trademark, studio executives initially insisted he wear hairpieces to fit certain roles. Brynner later refused, proving that bald could be beautiful on the big screen. 12. Bob Hope, the comic who kept his topper under wraps. Bob Hope's 6-decade career as a comedian, actor, and USO entertainer made him one of America's most beloved figures, a national institution whose distinctive profile, ski-jump nose, and seemingly ageless appearance became instantly recognizable to generations of fans. What most of those fans never realized was that Hope's familiar appearance included a hairpiece from relatively early in his Hollywood career. Hope began wearing hairpieces in the early 1940s when he was in his late 30s and had already established himself as a radio star and rising film comedian. Unlike dramatic actors whose hairpieces were designed to maintain romantic appeal, Hope's situation presented unique requirements. His hairpiece needed to withstand the physical comedy and rapid movements that characterized his performances. What makes Hope's case particularly interesting is how his hairpiece occasionally became part of his comedic toolkit. In private performances for military troops, though never in his public broadcasts or films, Hope would occasionally incorporate his hairpiece into his routine, sometimes adjusting it deliberately to get laughs during moments when he pretended to be flustered or surprised. Makeup artist Wally Westmore later revealed, Bob approached his hairpiece differently than most stars. While others treated theirs as a closely guarded secret, Bob saw his as occasionally useful for comedy, though only in certain settings and always on his terms. What distinguished Hope's hairpiece from many contemporaries was its remarkable consistency over decades. While other stars' hairpieces evolved in style and fullness, Hope maintained essentially the same appearance from 1940s through the 1990s, a stability that became part of his brand. Hope's longtime personal hairstylist, Harry Gilbart, maintained a collection of identical hairpieces that were rotated and replaced as they showed wear. Bob's image was so established that any noticeable change would have been jarring to audiences. Gilbart explained, "We created a system where his appearance remained consistent regardless of whether he was filming a movie, doing a television special, or entertaining troops overseas." As Hope aged into his 80s and 90s, his hairpiece became somewhat more noticeable, particularly during his later television specials. Yet, even then, the viewing public largely accepted his unchanging appearance as simply part of the Bob Hope persona they had welcomed into their living rooms for generations. 13. Danny Kaye. The comedic genius with the elastic face and boundless energy also faced hair loss. Kaye's hairpieces were crafted to allow for his broad range of expressions and physical comedy, staying secure through dance routines, pratfalls, and fast-paced musical numbers. Offstage, he often preferred hats to wigs. 14. William Shatner. Before Star Trek made him a household name, Shatner began losing his hair in his 20s. His hairpieces were so natural-looking that many fans didn't realize he wore one until much later. Even as Captain Kirk, his toupee was a well-kept secret secured against the rigors of fight scenes and science fiction special effects. 15. Bing Crosby. The beloved crooner and actor, known for White Christmas, wore a toupee for much of his career. Crosby's hairpiece was understated, matching his laid-back, approachable image. He often joked about it in private, but on screen, it was always perfectly styled to maintain the wholesome, boy-next-door appeal audiences adored. These 15 stars remind us that even the most confident, charismatic men in Hollywood weren't immune to hair loss, and that the magic of the movies often relied on a little glue, some fine lace, and the skill of master wigmakers. In the Golden Age, hair wasn't just hair, it was a symbol, a selling point, and sometimes the most closely guarded secret in show business.